Like I seen Brian Windhorst on one of these shows not too long ago. Like a clip.
Yeah, you played over high school.
Windy, you guys played together in high school.
Yeah,
right? He was on your high
Yeah,
school
this
team.
guy was like, says he's like my best friend. These guys are just weird.
I'd like to remind the audience of this. The same dude that LeBron James called weird and said what he said on the Pat McAfee show as it pertains to Wendy is the same dude he once sat up on a podium and said, "There's nobody in the business that knows me better than Wendy, who's been covering me since junior high school."
Well, now tuned in to the Dark Times channel.
And so here we go again, back with another one. Welcome back to the Dark Times channel. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into it. And you might see me or hear me a little bit more animated than what you're used to hearing me.
Tell me one time. Tell me one thing that Brian Windhorst has done to negatively impact LeBron James. One, take your time. I'll wait. Nobody is more fair. Nobody digs deeper, maneuvers through the crevices to find the positive about LeBron James, no matter what the story is.
Calling out somebody that had no business being called out. You know, it's one thing, him and Stephen A. Smith had beef. That's one thing, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. But for LeBron James to call out Brian Windhorst, who's done nothing but praise LeBron James' entire career, so much so that I used to think that Brian Windhorst was on LeBron James's payroll. It was like that, and a lot of y'all probably thought the same thing because everything that was coming out of Brian Windhorst's mouth was positive about LeBron James. LeBron James could do no wrong.
I'd like to remind the audience of this. The same dude that LeBron James called weird and said what he said on the Pat McAfee show.
Like I seen Brian Windhorst on one of these shows not too long ago. Like a clip.
Yeah, you played over high school.
Windy, you guys played together in high school.
Yeah,
right? He was on your high
Yeah,
school
this
team.
guy was like, says he's like my best friend. These guys are just weird.
As it pertains to Wendy is the same dude he once sat up on a podium and said, "There's nobody in the business that knows me better than Wendy, who's been covering me since junior high school." That's the guy that turned around and slighted Brian Windhorst yesterday on national television. Go ahead, Perk.
And so no doubt about it, that was an unnecessary stray. There was no reason for Brian Windhorst to be even brought up. Brian Windhorst has done nothing, like Stephen A. Smith say, but talk positively about LeBron James. And even LeBron James, like Stephen A. mentioned, said that nobody knows him better than Brian Windhorst, who's been covering him since high school. And so we have to ask why. Why would LeBron James go out of his way to try to stand or try to fan Brian Windhorst and act like he's some kind of groupie that doesn't know what he's talking about, that doesn't know LeBron James? Why would he do that? He did it because he doesn't need Wendy anymore. LeBron James might very well be the smartest dummy out there because when he talks basketball, it's like listening to Neil deGrasse talk about space. He knows what he's talking about. He knows his basketball. Highly intelligent when it comes to basketball. But when he gets beyond basketball and starts trying to make these little passive-aggressive moves, it's like he thinks that we can't see through the BS. We can't see what he's really doing. So that lets you know right there what he thinks of everybody else. The fact that he thinks the majority of the public is stupid, which in that sense he might be right, because I guarantee you half the comments below are going to be all the bronzexuals talking about how I'm wrong and how LeBron is the victim here, somehow, some way.
I'm not gonna go as far as I wanna go in saying how weak that stuff is in terms of how he confronted me. I would have waited. I did not know initially that after he finished getting in my face, he looked right up at the camera.
And you can say what you want to say, but Stephen A. Smith didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to have that spotlight on him like that, in that setting. He didn't deserve to be ran up on by LeBron James, all 6'8", 6'9" of LeBron James, staring down at Stephen A. Smith, all for being critical of LeBron James, all for being critical of Bronny James. He didn't deserve that. He never took it personal. I could see if Stephen A. Smith talked about his wife, talked about his son personally or something like that. I could see that. I think a lot of us could. But for what Stephen A. Smith said, he didn't deserve that. Because LeBron James has never had smoke for anybody else like that. Not on the court, not off the court. And he's been called a lot by a lot of different people.
my last thing, and I'm glad y'all brought up the Mind the Game podcast. And the one thing I will say, sharing the locker room with LeBron James, being LeBron James' teammate, being in McDonald's All-American, all that, he is one of the brightest basketball minds I've ever been around. Okay, you lose J.J. Redick, and then you go out and get Steve Nash. I would never question Steve Nash IQ or his intelligence when it comes down to the game of basketball. But Richard Jefferson just got hired as on our A team to cover the NBA. He's one of the brightest basketball minds I've ever been around. Okay, you lose J.J. Redick, and then you go out and get Steve Nash. I would never question Steve Nash IQ or his intelligence when it comes down to the game of basketball. But Richard Jefferson just got hired as on our A team to cover the NBA Finals. He's smart as hell. Shannon Fry, who won the championship with LeBron James, who does NBA TV, he's intelligent as hell. Phil Handy, who LeBron James won 2 championships with, who's now doing his own thing, he's intelligent as hell. Hell, Draymond Green. Well, I know Draymond Green ruffled the feathers, but no one could ever question his basketball mind or his basketball IQ. He's smart as hell. So what I'm getting at is, why none of those guys, LeBron? These are your guys. Why none of those guys are on Mind the Game? And I'll leave it at that.
And so will I.
And so like Kendrick Perkins was alluding to, Steve Nash is an interesting choice. Of all the teammates that LeBron James has played with, he chose to go with Steve Nash. Just like before, he chose to go with J.J. Redick. That's very interesting. And at the same time, it's very telling. And I'm not gonna dive too deep into that, but some of y'all can read between the lines. And so LeBron James, in my opinion, and I know he's probably got a few more years left in the tank at best, he's doing a lot of sucker moves right now. And I've been one of the people actually rooting for LeBron James. I wanted to see him do well. I wanted to see him win a championship with his son. And I still do to some degree. I'm not really beholden to any team. I got a few players that I follow, but outside of that, I was rooting for LeBron James and Bronny James. But he's making it hard. He's making it difficult. But that's my take on it anyways. You guys go ahead and chime in below on this one. Definitely get in the comment section on this one, and let's go ahead and keep this conversation going. I'll be in there as well. And so, as usual, peace and chaos.